The guest today, Dan Friedman from ParkiBot. Dan, I'm going to let you take it away from here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you take it from here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. I'd like to just sort of introduce myself for a moment and then give you a tour of this AI tool that I've created called ParkiBot. So my name is Dan Friedman, and as well as being behind ParkiBot, I'm a co-founder of a company called Composium.ai, which specializes basically in AI that sort of behaves itself, like it doesn't hallucinate things, and it gives you sources for all the references, and it stays on topic and on tone and on brand. And when you start talking about medical stuff with AI, you sort of can't get away without that. So it seemed natural to carry that product over into the Parkinson's world because 9 years ago I was diagnosed myself with Parkinson's disease. And as you all know, it's sort of no joke, right? So all very well to have an AI for Parkinson's, but what is the purpose of it? And I've noticed that myself, when I'm in front of my neurologist, he says a lot of things that I sort of take in, but I don't really understand them as well as I want to. And so then I go home and I see things in the news and there's other things I want to know more about. And that's what ParkiBot is for. So without further ado, let me just pull up a screen share here. And I can just sort of give you a walkthrough of it. Let me find the right window here. This is one of the issues here is I've got too many things. There we go. Share. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something, it's totally free. There's no commercial aspects to it whatsoever at this point. It's just sort of a gift to the community. You can get at it by going to ParkiBot.com. And it gives you an interface that is quite similar to GPT that you may have used before, ChatGPT. So it's basically sort of the typical AI interface that people are used to. But basically, it asks you to have a conversation with it. So you might say something like, I'm experiencing off episodes around lunchtime. What can I do? That's pretty general, right? And if you type that into ChatGPT, you get a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. But ParkiBot has been trained on over 250,000 Parkinson's disease-related documents, not only academic documents, but also all of the sort of popular websites from the Parkinson's world. And it also, in real time, it'll go and search the web through things like the Allen Institute's semantic search, which has about 250 million scientific papers, and it'll do that search in 5 or 6 seconds. So when you ask a question, as we did, I'm experiencing off episodes around lunchtime, what can I do? It gives you a summary and then a lot of details, which we won't read through it, but it gives you sources. It gives you background reading. It gives you suggestions of questions that can take you deeper into the subject. And it also suggests ways that you can broaden your approach to the subject by exploring different perspectives. And then if it has made claims in its response, it gives you a list of the claims that it's made. And if you click on any of those, it'll take you to the source of that claim. So if I just click on that, it would take us to the source of that particular piece of information. It's not always a scientific source. Sometimes it is. So are there any questions at this point about ParkiBot? Yes, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. Thanks very much, Dan. I mean, I guess it's how if you were to speak to other people
Yes.
about this who may be scared of misinformation or disinformation or quality information versus not so good quality information. I mean, how would you answer those kind of queries?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question, and in many respects, it is the question when it comes to applying AI to things of consequence, and medical things are, of course, always of consequence. The way we've approached ParkiBot is quite different than the way most people approach AI. Most people start off by telling their AI something like, you are an expert in Parkinson's disease, and you give world-class responses to questions put to you and things like that. We begin by saying you are not an expert in Parkinson's disease, but you're a very good researcher. And insofar as you can find sources for things that are useful to people in the answers to their questions, that is your job. It is not to render the opinions that you already have. So at the very least, that means that rather than coming up with its own opinions, it is rendering the opinions from the data sources that we've given to it. But they're not all equal. And so there are certain organizations and certain journals and things that we would rank higher than others. And then basically that's a whole sort of sifting process that it goes through there. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it gets it right every time. That is just not available to us today in the AI world. But what it won't do is it won't give you medical advice. It will point you to medical advice that is available in the literature and on the community websites of sites like the Michael J. Fox Foundation and so on that are very well respected. Does that give you a good answer for that, Dom?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I guess it'll be one of those ones that, you know, we'll all try it and understand more about what the sources it's coming up, because I guess the more we use it, the more we'll get a sense of what kind of sources it links us to. And yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. I'm really excited to have a play with it and see what happens.
Yeah, that's why I invited Dan here, because I had to play with it, and I was really impressed with the answers I was getting. Sharon, you have a question?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think this is terrific. Is it easy for people who have never used AI before, have not used ChatGPT, to figure it out?
I have watched a number of different kinds of people use it, and I've sort of classified them into 4 kinds of people. There's patients, caregivers, medical professionals, and researchers, and they all tend to use it differently. The group that seems to have the, it takes maybe a couple of minutes longer to get used to it, are the patients and the caregivers, actually the people I'd like to help the most. But the problem is they expect it to be not something they can have a conversation with. They start trying to say things like, how do I ask it this particular question? And the answer to that is, you just type it in. And it does actually take people a moment, if they haven't used AI before, to get used to that, because they're used to, where's the menu? Where do I click? What are my choices? In fact, that is actually one of the reasons why we put this section here at the bottom, is to give people some sample questions. So here's a really complicated one. What is the interplay between dopaminergic and serotonergic systems in levodopa patients? And it's an interesting subject, because serotonin producing neurons are used to produce dopamine in the brain from levodopa, but they don't have the back pressure regulation systems that the dopaminergic systems used to have. So there's a cross-pollination there between the 2 neurotransmitters. If that happens to be something that you're interested in, you would get a very detailed, very scientific response. Okay.
Okay.
But if, on the other hand, you just said, like, I'm new, what is Parkinson's? It'll take a few seconds, but it'll give you a completely different level of response there. So it sort of gets used to you based on the question that you type in.
Okay. All right. And is there, I know you said it does not give medical advice, which I'm really happy to hear. Is there a disclaimer on the site when you first get started about that? That any kind of disclaimer? Go to your neurologist for, if you have any questions or.
So, okay. So first of all, we can customize that to have any particular meaning, and it is different in different jurisdictions. At the moment, we have a very general disclaimer at the bottom here, which just says confirm information before taking action.
Okay.
Now, that's the same kind of disclaimer that you get everywhere, but I must admit it is an open question as to whether it needs to be stronger than that.
Okay.
I
Because
think if it were confusing people with medical advice, I think it would need to be much stronger.
Yeah. I mean, I can send you what I use on my
Oh,
website.
please. That would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay. And all right, so this is up and running?
Oh, yes.
Okay, because I have a meeting Sunday with women with Parkinson's, and it might be something I could maybe just do a quick demo with them, show them that it's
I would
available.
love that. I would be deeply grateful if there's anybody who you think could use this from the community. Remember, a lot of people don't even have a neurologist, so they just don't have sources of answers, or maybe they read something, but they don't understand something. If it's something on here you don't understand, you just say, what do you mean by blah, blah, blah? And it'll go into a lot of depth there. And by the way, if you ask it these questions in another language, it will answer in your language.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yvonne?
Dan, you mentioned this looks amazing, by the way. Thank you so much for the making it available. You mentioned that we fed it lots of information and sources. Who is the we?
Well, okay, so the we is largely me and my programming team at the company that I started, Composium.ai. Basically, there is a process that I would describe as being in many respects similar to what Google does when it makes the information on, in quotes, your website available to people who are searching for it. And there's a well-established mechanism using files like robots.txt and sitemap.xml for the owners of websites to tell things like Google what are they allowed to look at and what are they not allowed to look at. And we respect those same mechanisms. Additionally, though, we make access to things like the semantic search database, which I mentioned earlier, of about 250 million scientific papers. They're not all on Parkinson's. We sift out about the top 1 in 1,000 of those to get 250,000 that we've read in. And so it has a pretty thorough knowledge of Parkinson's. And then it can also search the web in real time and find, for example, scientific papers that were just published today or pre-press articles, things like that. So that's where the information comes from.
So Dan, I am a high techie, 54 years, and a lot of user interface work. I have, first off, this is fantastic. I have two suggestions for this early phase of introduction with the product, and that is to try to pick some plain language that people could relate to and put it above your first box, and that would be something like, I am not I'm not here to die. Well, I am not a medical professional. I am your librarian. You exactly. Yes. So that metaphor translates to a lot of people, so they know the librarian isn't going to. The librarian is going to retrieve sources of information for them. So
I'm making a note here. Yes, thank you.
Give them a little paradigm to sit in, and leave it up there for probably the first year until because you're trying to seed this message during the early phase. You have not yet crossed the chasm, so you're in the early adopter phase.
Indeed.
And so you lean more toward helping people get a context during that phase. And then the other thing is, you might for a while even say no menus to look for, okay, or something like that. That really clues them in to stop looking all over the page, because you are 100% correct. During the early adoption phase, people are just intimidated by the technology, independent of what the particular product is. is that intimidation phase. And so little cues to help them be less intimidated. I mean, I know at Google, and well, it wasn't Google that started this. It was Yahoo who perfected it first. Having one bar in which people typed in for a search. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about having categories and all that. If you remember, the earlier ones had all these categories to start with.
I lived through it, yes.
Correctly said, get rid of the categories. It's all confusing. Just give people a box to type in and they'll experiment. They'll, you know, led by the youth who'll just type in anything. They'll experiment. So little cues like that will help you during this early phase. Get them past the intimidation and get into what we call the usability phase.
Okay.
That's what you really want. You want to increase usability, and then the rest will take care of itself. But this is fantastic.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that you've made a great suggestion.
Hey, Dan, can you fill folks in on what your background is, just so they have an idea?
Yeah, so I'm a computer security expert by training, and got my start in the 1990s when the internet was really just coming into its own. Internet security, the sort of cat and mouse, chase the bad guy game, that was my area. And following an acquisition of a company I'd started, I ended up as the vice president of security products at a company called McAfee, and I ran the McAfee security division for much of the late 1990s. So Bernard, actually, I'm right there with you. You know, you have to be able to reach the masses with a very simple message, for sure.
And now I recognize why I recognize your face. After you filled in the details, I know you.
Yeah, I recognize you as well. I don't quite know where from, but we've met.
Oh, we're bringing people together that didn't even know they were apart.
Yeah.
Larry, I think I've taken over your time here, so
that's
I think
okay.
I've
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah.
Andrew, Andrew Bell, are you caught up?
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, everyone.
This is a
Hello, Andrew.
This is a website called ParkiBot.com. It's a bot that's a librarian for Parkinson's.
Good. Yeah.
Excellent. I've just been looking at it online, and surprisingly enough, this was a conversation in our office just in the last 10 days. How do we add this kind of functionality? So this is fantastic.
I really appreciate
that. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now it's not embeddable yet. But
yeah, that's coming soon. We've got two major features coming up in the new year: embeddability, and then you'll be able to speak to it, and it will respond to your audio.
Fantastic.
Great.
So if you ask it for something that needs diagrams, it'll do that for you. If you ask it something like, give me a table of conferences in 2025. Of course, it knows you're talking about Parkinson's disease. It won't let you talk about anything other than Parkinson's disease. But if it'll go and make a lot of calls out to the internet on your behalf. And if there's some things you want more detail on, you can just ask it. So I'm hoping it's going to be a useful resource for people.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think we all agree.
A question at the end also that says, was this helpful?
Yeah, well, that's right. There's it's pretty small right now. There's a thumbs up and a thumbs down, but I think that maybe that could be bigger.
Yeah. Or just the text, was this helpful?
Right, right.
Question mark, yeah.
Jen Gillis.
Yeah, I have a question. If one was looking for, say, a research project to get involved in, does that data, if you typed that in, would that kind of come up like it looks at clinicaltrials.gov or something?
So are you thinking about joining something as a patient, you mean? Or
yeah, if you're a patient and like seeking a clinical trial in some specific topic or want to know information about that, just wondering if that's kind of part of it.
I think we're about to find out.
real time.
This is Lori. Usually if you're a part of a clinical trial, you will sign either release for use of your data in the future for educational purposes, or no, you don't want your data used. So you have a choice at that point if the people are doing a regular like NIH clinical trial. So the patient has control in those kinds of circumstances.
Yeah, but if you're just searching for a possible trial to be a part of or study.
So it's given us 5 here, and they are pretty deep here. And if there are any of these that you wanted to ask more about, and you could also limit it to accepting patients near me, and it would take a look at, if you permitted it, it would take a look at your location, and if not, it would ask you what your location is.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's good for things like that in real time, and it knows about a lot of national resources in the US, Canada, and the UK. I haven't really got around to collecting all the data sources from other countries yet, but it's pretty good in those 3. So, you know, I'm looking for a PD physiotherapist in Brandon, Manitoba. Not an easy thing to find in Brandon, Manitoba, probably. I'm just going out on a limb here. It's a small town. So it's going to go and search, and if any of the Canadian organizations, I happen to know that Parkinson's Canada does have a list of such things. So it found 1 at least.
Well, that's probably beats the odds.
Now, you know, I would like to just to let everyone know that it's a work in progress, but it kind of knows a lot right now, but it doesn't know everything. If there's something you would like it to know that it doesn't know, let me know, and then I can make sure that it learns it.
Great.
Yeah.
Any final questions?
Yeah, put your email address in the chat so I can start communicating with you.
Bernard,
I'll do it. I'll do it. And then my ask on the way out of this, just before I do that, and then I'll let you get on with your meeting. My ask is that if there's anybody you know who should be looking at this tool, please point them at it.
Group.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic.
Sure, yeah.
Good.
Definitely.
I'll find the chat thing here, and I will put my email in the chat, and then I'll let you get on with your meeting. How about that? Thank you very much, Larry, for asking me.
Thanks,
and I'll
Dan.
just drop off quietly in a moment once I've put my thing in the chat.
Great. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.